All right, hello, beautiful people. I quit my job and I left Arizona. I'm currently in Nevada at my dad's house, which I have taken videos before. Perhaps you guys kind of recognize the setting. But anyway, guys, I did make a whole entire travel vlog over the it took me about 3 days to get here, and the morning that I was going to arrive, I actually left the spot that I was at like 6:30 in the morning because it was so hot and it was starting to get too hot for my dogs again. And I was just like, you know what? I'm an hour and a half away. I'm just gonna go. Oh my God, I just found pee on the ground. I'm just gonna go and get somewhere where there's air conditioner and I can actually get sleep and my dogs aren't in my car panting. So, anyway, that morning my phone started glitching out so bad that I could barely thankfully I could use it just enough to have my directions work up until getting here, and then it started glitching so bad that I could no longer use my phone. So I lost all those videos. It's on my other phone, which now no longer works. It doesn't really let me use the touchscreen anymore, but it would start just like glitching and opening apps and unlocking and calling random people and sending random texts. And I was just like, okay, well, this phone is donezo. So I didn't have a phone for a couple days, and thankfully, my stepsister and brother gave me an old phone of theirs, which is a little bit cracked, but it's actually still an upgrade. My other phone was also cracked, so super grateful right now to have this new phone and super grateful to be the fuck out of Arizona. Um, to explain a little bit, guys, my move was pretty last minute. I had a series of very extreme mental breakdowns, and my mental health for a while out there had been deteriorating consistently over a period of time. To be honest, since February, which I'd only been in that job for about a month and a half, shit just started hitting the fan, and my life had been kind of this constant mode of chaos since February, basically. And so I was bartending in this little dive bar called Mickey's in St. John's, and I worked there since the end of December to not quite the end of August. I really loved that job at times, but I will absolutely recognize it was an extremely toxic environment, and I definitely would be open to bartending again, possibly, but at the same time, honestly, I think that perhaps that is just a job that maybe that was my one and done. I felt like I was a really great bartender, but it just started to drain the life out of me. And that town itself also, I don't know, guys. It was just, I feel like out of all the places I've ever lived, the spiritual warfare there was so extreme compared to every place. And I lived in Humboldt, like Murder Mountain area, for like 3.5 years, and I would still say that the spiritual warfare was still nothing compared to this little town that I lived in. And I I honestly don't really think that a bar is probably the healthiest environment for me as well, just also considering I have had a history with alcoholism. And while I did have sober streaks, I took 4 weeks off of drinking completely at one point. It was still a very different, it was a difficult atmosphere to be in all the time and stay sober most of the time. I made a lot of mistakes while I was there. I had a lot of toxic, unhealthy relationship dynamics while I was there. And basically, after like recently, over the past few weeks, a series of extreme mental breakdowns that ended me up in the ER for suicidal thoughts. And I've dealt with suicidal thoughts over my period of time there, but it just got so bad to the point that I was like, I really need to get help. Um, I left the ER and I was planning on getting into like some outpatient care, and I just I realized a couple days after getting out of the ER, I had another really suicidal spell, and I just realized that day I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. This has become such a toxic place for me. So, I actually ended up quitting last Monday. Today is Friday. So, I actually left Arizona this past Monday, and the Monday before that I quit, and I gave literally no notice other than that being my last day, which I do feel bad about that. And I realized that I should have given my 2 weeks notice the week before, the week and a half before, when was like, I need to quit this job, and my intuition was telling me it's time to go, it's quitting time. I was getting all these synchronicities in my life, seeing all these things, and I just I wanted to push myself. I wanted to stay longer. I wanted to keep saving for my van or my bus. And it just got so bad to the point that I wrote it in a letter to my boss that basically my life is more important than this job. And this is the most suicidal I have ever been in a job in my entire life. So it was time to go. I worked my Monday shift, and that was the last day I have been at Mickey's. The couple days later, I ended up taking myself to an inpatient facility, a psych emergency hospital, and I stayed there for a couple days. I got a little bit more of my meds for my journey, and I left on Monday. And when I left, I was in this state of like severe disassociation and feeling extremely depressed, also from some other things that had happened literally within the past week leading up to me leaving, the night before leaving, and I was just not in a very good mental state. I drove to Flagstaff, and I ended up staying near Flagstaff in the woods for the night. And the next morning I just still wasn't feeling so great, and I just decided I'm just going to get back on the road right away rather than lingering here. And I reached it, I think it's called Marble Canyon. It's kind of near the Grand Canyon area, close to the Utah Arizona border. And I got out a certain distance out near the Marble Canyon, and it was like this massive shift inside of me happened. And I just started feeling way more positive. Just way more positive. And I do not think that this was a manic episode at all. I think that this was an absolute shift in perspective and in my energy and my frequency, where I just all of a sudden also started receiving all this clarity about so much stuff that had gone down in my life. And I watched a video recently, and the one thing that I took away from it that really stuck was that alignment follows action. And in this moment, when I felt that shift inside of me, I was brought back to that statement, and I was just like, I felt that. I felt like I was in alignment, and again. And I just started feeling all this peace, and I started feeling hopeful again. And it was just that in itself was enough confirmation for me to feel like I'm so proud of myself. I'm so proud of myself for the decision that I made to leave, even if it was very last minute, and even if the way that I left the job, I don't really like leaving jobs like that, although I have in the past. I also took away from that I need to stop pushing myself so close to that point of breaking before I finally decide it's time to get up and leave. It's time to go. It's time to create something better for myself than this, because this is unhealthy. This is toxic as fuck. And sometimes I think a lot of people do that. I think a lot of times we do that, where we do push ourselves to the breaking point where you have literally reached the full maximum, the limit, your absolute limit of what you can deal with. And then you are like, nope, I have nothing else to give. I have given all of myself up to this point, and I have no more to give in this. And yeah, so I left, guys. I'm really glad to be gone. Like I said, I'm staying at my dad's. I am taking a few days to rest and just I feel like I'm just having this massive energetic detox right now. just, and I can feel it. I can feel it in my body, in my mind, in my energy body, in my emotions, where it was just like, I felt so exhausted. I slept a good amount. Like the first day that I got here, I slept pretty much almost the entire day. And then I went to bed at like 8 p.m. at night, just passed out. I stayed in bed till like noon or like 1 o'clock yesterday. And after that, I actually felt like I had quite a bit of energy back, but I think that I just needed that rest to just reset my system. Reset my system, move out of that energy that I'd been lingering in for way too long, and just recognize, allow myself to recognize that I'm no longer there anymore. I'd had a couple conversations recently as well about, actually about this environment and how unhealthy it felt for me, and how unhealthy the majority of the people felt for me out there. I feel like while I was there, my trust issues were so amplified. And I do have to say it was greatly due to the environment that I worked in, where you're just oftentimes dealing with a lot of sketchy people. You're dealing with drunks. You're dealing with the worst sides of people. And there are some really beautiful people that I worked with there. There were some beautiful people that I worked around, a lot of beautiful patrons. But was finding more and more that I would like let somebody in from that environment, and then they would do something I'd be like, whoa, dude, no, 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 no. That is not the type of person that I want in my life. Hail to the fucking no. I had multiple confirmations before I left about certain people that I was getting like really like, I don't know about you. I really don't know. I don't know. My body, my intuition is just feeling really safe around you. And I had multiple confirmations before I left that, yep, my body was right. My intuition was absolutely right about these people in this environment. So, yeah, guys, I'm really grateful to be gone. And I will say, I learned a lot there. In some ways, I felt more broken down by being there. But in a lot of other ways, I can recognize how being there, being in that environment, and making myself push through uncomfortable feelings did make me a lot stronger in some ways. At the same time, there comes a time when there's enough. There comes a time when I have to walk away from the toxic environment that I am allowing myself to stay in. In the word of pushing through it and doing something difficult, there comes a time when it's time to walk away. It's time to let it go, and it's time to allow yourself to upgrade in life away from toxic experiences, people, situations, places, jobs, etc., etc. Another thing that I really took away from this was the people that I allow in my life. And this has been a theme, but I feel like the theme was amplified. And there was a lot that I couldn't necessarily get away from. There was a lot that I could not get away from without leaving my job completely. A lot of the toxic energy and the toxic people that I was surrounded by were people that I could not remove from my life without quitting my job. It's not that I couldn't remove them from my life, it's that I didn't want to quit my job yet. No, well, that's a lie. I did want to quit my job, but I was choosing to remain in it. I think with leaving this place and leaving that atmosphere, it put a massive reality check, though, on the people that I do allow in my life. And it made me realize, especially with these last few really bad mental breakdowns, that I cannot allow unhealthy, toxic relationships and dynamics in my life if I want to be healthy. And I realize that that might even hurt some people. I even realized that in a way, perhaps people are going to look at me as if I am a bad friend. But I can't do it anymore. I can't sacrifice myself and my mental health for other people. I am really proud of myself because even with this big kind of, I mean, you could call it an erratic mood, you could call it an erratic move, but I don't actually consider it that because I have been planning and wanting this for a while. And like I said, I wish that I had chosen a different method and quit and given my notice the initial time that I was like, this is the end of the line for me. And then, but oh no, no, I could do this. No, it was the end of the line for me. But coming here, getting my rest in, feeling this interesting mix between, okay, now that I've stopped moving in my car and I started to be stationary here, some of the emotions started coming back up, some of the pain and the heartbreak started rising back up, and being in this interesting mix of knowing that I've shifted away from that, but still feeling those lingering qualities. Yesterday, I was sitting on my bed and I was watching some movies on my TV, which I don't really usually watch, but it felt like I needed to just get out of my head for a little bit. And the movies were so nice and they felt uplifting and felt like they had to do with my life. But I heard this voice and it was just like, remember what you came here for. Remember what you came here for. And so I just started shifting my perspective out of feeling that kind of depressed again and disheartened into why am I here? Okay, let's focus on now. Let's focus on right now. What did I come here for? And I brought out my journal and I started writing all this down. All right, so what I wrote down is why I came here. 1, to receive love and support. 2, to leave a toxic environment. 3, to rest and rejuvenate and reconnect with myself. 4, to save money and restructure my home, which would be my forerunner, either putting a new little bed build in there or saving for my van slash bus. 5, peace. And 6, to get new meds or, more psychological help here, therapy and such. And then I wrote down, what can I do to create this? Because at this point, if I'm going somewhere and I'm going there with a purpose and I'm just laying there and just being like, yep, I got a purpose and I'm not doing anything towards working towards that, what am I doing? Sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need longer periods of rest and rejuvenation and kind of doing nothing. But this time I'm excited because I'm feeling more motivated than I have in the past when I have made a move, which I would say about a year and a half ago is when I kind of left my living in my forerunner full time and being on the West Coast and hopping around a lot. I left that specifically for kind of the same reason that I'm here, to get help, to get support, to get psychological help. And but I spent a lot of time resting. I spent a lot of time kind of fighting myself and my inner demons. And this time I came here and I felt motivated. So I'm like, what can I do to create this? I can spend more time outside. I can find a job. I can get my medical and food stamps, exercise, create. This is a form of creating, painting, poetry, dancing would all be forms of creating for me as well. Leaving the past behind, which means not sitting there and focusing on all the things that hurt me in my time while I was in Arizona. Choosing more wisely. This means choosing more wisely a job, where I work, how I make money, including the relationships that I am allowing in my life, the environments that I am choosing to be in, choosing who I have in my space. Focusing on my goals. Focus has been such a big theme in my life. But I think that ties to those as well, not getting distracted by lingering in the past, by lingering in all my mistakes, by lingering in old relationships and toxic dynamics, focusing, keeping my head fucking forward and focusing on what I want to do. Using my time wisely. It's all tied to those things. Breathing more, which would include meditation, going out in nature, exercise, yoga, spending time with trustworthy people. I think that is one of the biggest ones that I am choosing to focus on right now. Forgiveness. This would be forgiveness of myself and the mistakes that I've made and the unhealthy patterns that I've chosen for myself, as well as forgiving others. And gratefulness, which also ties into not just getting caught up in the past and looking around me and seeing where I'm at and all the wonderful things that I have to be grateful for. The first affirmation that I wrote after that was I choose to see everything through a new perspective. I choose to see everything through a new perspective. The next one was I receive and accept all the love that is around me. I experience and create more joy. I love and accept my differences. I am self reliant. My energy is cleansed. I let the past go. I allow myself to be different and grow and flourish in my uniqueness. The love that surrounds me is so great, and I choose to see that every day. Positive change happens for me. I think the best part, the thing I'm so proud of myself the most right now about, is that leaving this toxic environment. And rather than many times in the past where it's been so easy to be caught up in that depression and that holding a grudge against myself and others for what I've been through and allowing that to demotivate myself, to take away my willpower and to literally physically exhaust me. This time I allowed myself to rest, but I also feel so much more motivated. And this time I can see that even through all the toxic aspects that I went through in this place and this job and a lot of these relationships that I was in, was that so much good was still created in myself. If you guys have been following me for a while, perhaps you've seen the videos in the past where I had initially planned on leaving Arizona in this job in like pre-summer times, probably around like April. And I'd given like 2 months notice. And I was planning on leaving, and I had a switch inside of myself, and I was like, you know what? I think for my mental health, it would be good for me to learn how to have stability in my life. To teach myself, to retrain my brain after having such an unstable childhood and 20s, to retrain my brain to show myself that I am capable and worthy of stability. That I am capable and worthy of financial stability as well as physical stability. As I entered into that proving it to myself kind of season, I was reminded that that is not the form of living that I want for myself. I am definitely more of a nomadic person, and I've learned also to just accept that about myself more fully, that that is still more of the mode of living that I want for myself. But by choosing to do something difficult, even though it became more and more of a toxic environment for me, by choosing to do that for myself, I actually did prove it to myself. And this time leaving Arizona, I left with I think I left with quite a bit less money than I did when I left Utah last year and moved to Arizona. I left with less money, but I felt more confident in myself and my ability to make that money last, as well as to have everything I need provided for myself. I literally accomplished what I went there to do, guys. So that I have to recognize that and be super fucking proud of myself for that, because yeah, I didn't leave in the best method of quitting that quickly, and yeah, it became a very toxic environment, and honestly, it was pretty much for the majority of my time there, it was actually a very toxic environment for me. But if I can make myself grow that much, if I can create that much for myself in a place that did not nurture me, in a place that I didn't feel like I could be myself, imagine how much I can create and grow in atmospheres that do serve me, in atmospheres that do nurture me, in atmospheres that I feel even more deeply belonging. Imagine how much more I can grow and create in healthy environments. So for that aspect, 10 out of 10 do recommend. For all the other bullshit, no. I will say I do think that the bar environment, honestly, I gotta say, like, this is probably even good for me dealing with that, being in a bar environment that much, because I used to really love being in bars, and I'm sure someday I will go into a bar again. I would think now I would prefer it to be in a more of a celebratory way, rather than just always going alone like I have in the past the majority of the time. I used to love going to the bars all the time when I was in my early 20s. I was a severe alcoholic, and I used to go to the bar almost every single day. After working in this environment, it kind of gave me a bad taste in my mouth towards bars. And that's actually a really healthy thing, guys. It's a really healthy thing. And I also, like, I realized that I don't want relationships and jobs in my life that make me feel like I want to drink all the time. I don't want that in my life. And I can recognize now how toxic that is, that if I am despising where I'm at so much, or if the relationships in my life are feeling so hurtful that I just feel like I just got to get drunk, I just want to drink, that's unhealthy. And it's understandable, if it's every once in a while you go through something and you're just like, you know what, I think I'd like to have a beer, or you just have a day that is stressful and you look forward to that beer after work. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. But to the level it was for me at times, just no. And I can recognize how many other jobs and relationships I've been in the past where that has been the type of dynamic that it was. And yeah, guys, so just there are so many positive things that have come from this experience, no matter how difficult it was for me while I was there. The lessons that I gained from this were necessary. They were absolutely necessary. They were necessary to grow me into the person that I need to be for myself, as well as for others, as well as necessary to grow me into the person that I want myself to be. Because if I was staying in all of those patterns, that I have broken through a lot of patterns and learned to recognize certain things in my life that I just, perhaps I'd seen, but I wasn't fully acknowledging, taking credit for, or willing myself to change to such an extreme. Now it's just like, I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't have that shit in my life. And that is another thing that I definitely picked up from this experience, and I am very grateful for this bar atmosphere, is that I actually felt very self-empowered. There is something about being in a job where you are in control, where you are the one that controls the atmosphere. Very self empowering to learn to tell people no more. To be in a job that actually allows you to have boundaries with other people. Fuck yeah. I loved that aspect of being a bartender. And it helped grow that aspect of me even more than I already was. And I was already really proud of myself for those aspects that I had in myself. And now I just feel much, much, much more assertive than when I first started this job. But yeah, guys, I am so ready for this change, and I'm beyond ready for it to the point where it's like I'm creating the change. I'm making the change. I'm not just ready for it, and I'm just really proud of myself, and I'm glad that I left that environment because yeah, I honestly have no desire to ever go back there, and to be honest, I don't think that I will remain in contact with almost anybody that I met out there. I think that when you this is an aspect that I really enjoy about my style of living, of being more nomadic, is that it is much easier to leave the past behind. And I know some people look at it as if, oh, you're just running away. And I do not think that that is the case. I think that all of us, even those of us who remain in certain places, run away from certain things to certain degrees and ways and such. But it is a lot easier to cut people and environments out of your life that are unhealthy when you completely walk away from them. I do not know how long I will be staying here at my dad's. I have my purposes in mind, and I absolutely do want to make a good amount of money before I get on the road again, just as preparatory? Preparatory? Okay, we're gonna stick with it. And I'm not 100% sure where I'm gonna go next. To be honest, I really, really want to go back to Humboldt, but something needs to change if I'm going to go back there. Because I am not down to continue working in these super toxic farm environments. That is, when I left the West Coast, I was just like, I honestly was like, I never want to work on a pot farm again. And I would be open to it if it was a different environment. Because the majority of the pot farms that I worked on were very toxic environments. And I'm not willing to go back to that. So if I'm going to go back to Humboldt, something has to be different. And I'm not down to just do this. It's almost like this weird toxic cycle that happened out there where it would just be one toxic work environment after another, and it would just make you feel really beaten down, really discouraged, and more like financially intimidated and scared. But then again, if I'm going to go back there, I can't go back there with that perspective either. Because if I'm going to go back there with the perspective that that's how it is there, I'm going to keep creating that there. So I guess this is my call out to myself that I gotta let that shit go and expect that if that's where I'm gonna go, I am gonna be provided for and it is gonna be a different type of atmosphere. But that also goes in alignment with choosing differently and choosing wisely. So we will see, guys, where I go next. Oh my god, I'm like thinking about those redwoods. I'm like, ah! I would love that. I only have a couple friends out there still, but I would genuinely love to see you guys. So, wish me well, you guys, and send me all the good vibes. Send me all the good vibes for making just enormous puddles. Puddles? Let's do enormous mountains of money. Before I leave again, and if not, that I am headed straight to somewhere that is just going to pack my wallet, pack that shit up. Um, I know it'll work out, and that I am absolutely provided for no matter where I go. And I am absolutely going with my intuition on this, but I think that I am going to start doing some stuff for my dad over here, putting some stuff together for him while he and his wife are at work. And that is going to be it, you guys. I hope that you guys have an absolutely amazing and beautiful day. And I love you. And I believe in you. Okay? I'll see you next time. Oh, please do like and subscribe. Ah! Please do like and subscribe. Okay. Bye, guys.